Hey guys, good morning or good afternoon or good evening or whatever time you're accessing this first lesson. Welcome to Advanced Social Media. We're going to get started by laying some foundations and going over some key terms. I won't have a PowerPoint for every single chapter of the book. I know you're saying thank goodness. But we are going to be doing covering a lot of new ground, setting up some foundational understanding for some of the concepts that we'll be applying later on. But let's get started. I want to make sure that you know how to connect with me. I went over that in the introductory video, but in case you missed it, I'm pretty much at LD Low everywhere, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. I'm also Lisa Dubois Low on Facebook and LinkedIn. Would love for you to connect on in all of those platforms. I've set up a class hashtag on Twitter, and it's MCOM 5318. Participation on this hashtag is not required for the course or evaluation, but I will probably be sharing a lot of timely and relevant information that will supplement the course material. For your convenience, I hyperlinked it in the course menu. I also created a class Pinterest board. That's where I put links, put pins to material that I'm covering during lecture, additional material again that I think is relevant. And for anyone who's not on Pinterest, my basic description of Pinterest is bookmarking on steroids. It is primarily female dominated, so guys, a little bit of an apology, but you are a growing demographic on Pinterest, and I would love for you to check it out, maybe create your own account. You can collect everything from recipes you'd like to make for a date to how to fix the kitchen sink or how to replace the spark plugs in your car. So with that, we will get started. I want to begin outside of the textbook. A lot of material that you're going to learn about is going to put this into perspective, but I like to think of things very simply. Frankly, our lives are so cluttered, and my brain is so cluttered with information. The better I am able to distill something down into its very, very basic properties, the more readily I can absorb it and then retain the information. So after years and years of practice and application of digital and social media, I have formed this holy trinity of digital and social media. Digital and social, if done correctly, contains three primary elements. The first of which is listening and engagement. Basically, the premise for this is online conversations should mimic that of offline conversations, meaning how you would speak to someone on the phone, how you would speak to someone in person. If you are not observing that basic social etiquette, you're doing it wrong. So brands that want to participate in the digital and social space need to take a listen first approach. And that means what's happening in the world. What do we need to be concerned about? For instance, here in the United States, last week, we saw some pretty devastating social issues come to light. The two black men who were shot by police, and then having that video broadcast was very, very disturbing, obviously. And then having the officers sniped at in Dallas, that's not very far from home. And in fact, I know a few of you live in that area. It was very, very disturbing. So we want to understand what's happening in the bigger context before we speak. So if you are, say, a gun manufacturer or you're a police department and you're participating in this online space, you want to be sensitive to that greater context. And we're going to talk about that a lot each week. But you always listen first. When you join a conversation, you will typically ask a question. Hi, how are you? How are things going? and you listen to the response before you enter the conversation. It's just that simple. And then what we do is I tie engagement to that piece, because we want to engage with those who are already speaking and mentioning our brand in the social spaces. Whether that's positive or negative, it really doesn't matter, but you want to understand who's already talking about you. We're going to talk about digital influence and things of that nature, but you want to talk to people that are already talking about you before you go into this next phase, which is the second aspect of the Holy Trinity, is content. And that is actually publishing your message. So whether that content comes in the form of images, pretty pictures, cool video, stop motion video, all the fancy things that you can do. You can publish a white paper, you can just publish a tweet, a link back to your blog, a link to your website. You can publish any number of pieces of content, but that's the second piece. And you only want to do that once you understand the bigger context of what's happening on these social media platforms. And the final thing that you want to do is measure and analyze. So the thing I love about digital and social is that you can measure everything. You can measure how many tweets that you receive on your brand handle, how many retweets you get, how many people have clicked on your links, how many likes you get on Facebook, how many shares. Everything is measurable. That equals a lot of data. And then we're just talking about digital and social. When we get into the customer relationship management, or CRM aspects of this course, it's going to get a lot more complicated than that. But you want to understand that you need to measure something. That's something we're going to learn what best practices are. But then you want to analyze that data. So making sense of it all. And those three things, if you remember, always those three things in that order, and then you go back to the beginning: listen and engage, publish more content or respond to others, and then measure and analyze on a regular basis. And if you're doing those three things, you're doing it correctly. So the book starts out laying a foundation for understanding social media, and the authors coin it the horizontal revolution as opposed to the vertical revolution. And we're going to talk about the differences between those two concepts. I always want to start out with, what are we trying to achieve? We've got a map. We've set some course learning objectives that you need to understand and come away with. And I always want to loop back into making sure that we're staying on course, kind of like steering a ship. So the first two course learning objectives we're going to deal with is describe the social media landscape and its impact on traditional marketing strategy as it relates to strategic comm. The second thing is we want to understand what in the heck is social network and social object theory. We're going to get into that. That social network theory, I'm just going to let you know, it's a little bit technical, but it helps us to understand the explosion and how social media is so unique in terms of anything that we've seen previous to, let's say, 2005 or so. This is how these things are structured, definitely lends itself to their popularity and the growth that we've seen. What I want you to come away with in terms of module learning objectives or chapter learning objectives, we want to define what is Web 2.0. And that's a term we use in terms of, is it the first iteration of something? Is it the second? And what we're looking at. What are the implications of a democratic web for individuals and brands? And what do we mean by democratic web? Let's define. We're going to put some definitions around social media, and you're going to see the book calls them, they refer to them as a plural. I refer to social media as just a singular, but it really doesn't matter. So you're going to see me interchange what is social media, what are social media. What are the major zones associated with social media as defined by this book? What are earned, owned, and paid? What am I talking about when I say earned, owned, and paid? What motivates social behavior? That's really, one of the things we want to begin to understand so that we can understand how to approach social media and getting what we want as organizations and brands. And then what marketing objectives can organizations meet when they incorporate social media into their marketing mix? So the reason that we're here is, basically we now spend our lives online. Digital and social has changed the way we do everything. I don't think there's anything that you can pick, and I challenge you to do that. Maybe you could tweet me or put it on a bulletin board. I challenge you to come up with some aspect of your life in 2016 that doesn't have some digital aspect. We not only live on social media, checking Facebook and sharing, we love on social media, Match.com and Tinder and OkCupid and even some of the more illustrious websites like Ashley Madison. They have changed the way that we fall in love. They've changed the way we express ourselves. So we really are living a digital life. In fact, we're so busy living that digital life, we are practically immune to traditional marketing, branding, and public relations messages. Pretty much immune to those ads that we used to see when we were surfing around on, maybe the first version of Google, because the space was so uncluttered. It was, rare to find someone who was doing branding right back when the internet was first invented. But now it's so cluttered, the space is so cluttered that you really have to understand all of this in order to get seen. You can get lucky, sure, but you need to have a foundational understanding. When I talk about the next topic, interruption marketing, what I mean by that is think about TV. Before we had DVRs, before we could pause TV, skip commercials, binge watch on Netflix. Basically, if you wanted to watch a show, you were captive to it. You could not really avoid the commercial other than turn the TV off for a minute, walk to the kitchen, get something to drink. But it was interruption marketing, meaning it interrupted whatever it was that you were doing in that push type messaging. Hey, buy Coke, or hey, buy, Hellman's mayonnaise is better than Miracle Whip, those kinds of things. Social media, and this is my terminology, I believe social media is the new TV. So meaning if I want to watch a video on YouTube, I am forced to watch at least a portion of the commercial, sometimes all of it. And a lot of money is made that way. We've shifted from television now into this controlling these messaging, this pre-roll messaging, if you will. In order to access the content you want, you're forced to consume something that the brand has paid for. So what do I mean when I say Web 2.0? What does the book mean by Web 2.0? And what the heck does democratic have to do with it? So let's start out. I think I've already made the case. Social and mobile web has changed the speed, efficiency, and ease with which consumers engage with each other, with a tremendous impact on brands. Let me say that again. Social and mobile web has changed the speed, efficiency, and ease with which consumers engage with each other. With each other is the key words there. Prior to 2005, brands pretty much enjoyed a one-way communication with customers. And that goes back to that interruption advertising and marketing. Basically, they interrupted your lives. We interrupt this program for this, the regularly scheduled program for this messaging type of thing. But they really enjoyed this one-way communication. They put out whatever messages they wanted consumers to know. And pretty much no one had the power to refute those messages, to really complain about what was happening, maybe a product offering or something that didn't work properly. But now, after 2005 and after some of this social networking, if brands aren't having a two-way conversation with customers, they're going to suffer. and in fact, they might even go out of business. And that's pretty serious. So that go back to that Holy Trinity thing. We need to listen and engage with people that are talking about us, because what people say about your brand now becomes part of your brand, because social media is a living thing. And basically everyone that uses the internet has the same power as everyone else. So if you think about, say, being a student in this class, you have just as much power as the President of the United States in publishing content online. He doesn't have really anything in particular other than maybe having some connections. He doesn't have any more power than you do in beginning your own blog, in starting your own Facebook page, in creating a series of maybe you have an idea for a YouTube series of original content. If you got a camera, you can storyboard things and rope your friends into being actors. There is nothing stopping you from putting content online. So the impact of democracy, meaning that power to the people, really makes Web 2.0 what it is today. And so we use the word democratic, because it pretty much refers to rule by the people, right? So what does that mean in terms of media? Well, for example, media democratization means that members of social communities, not traditional media publishers like magazines or newspaper companies, or the national news or your local news, we basically have shifted the control to us. So they no longer control the message. They no longer are able to set that agenda so solidly as they used to, because anyone can create and deliver content. And let's look at a really unfortunate example from last week. If you haven't seen the woman Facebook live streaming the shooting and ultimate death of her fiance or boyfriend, I can't remember which, she actually has more authority than the traditional media at this point, because this is live, this is real, this is happening, and no one has to give her permission to do that. And that content went viral. And so we're going to talk about what things can impact the relative viralness of content. That'll be later. But basically, it just means that we all have an incredible influence in the marketplace now. It's no longer if I go on vacation and have a horrible experience at a Marriott property. Prior to 2005, I could write a strongly worded letter or an email and hope for the best, and they could in turn then get my letter, throw it in the trash, write me a form letter in return, or do nothing, because they had all the power and I had none. Now I can get on a blog and I can complain and share it with my friends, and that's the kind of content that goes viral. So I have just as much power as the CEO of Marriott. So think about it for just a minute. Have you ever expressed an opinion about a product, service, or public figure on social media? Have you ever complained? Usually you're complaining about something. Tweet an example on our class hashtag or post it on this week's discussion board. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what makes Web 2.0 democratic. So let's look at a definition. So this is a book definition of what are social media. What is social media? Social media, according to your textbook, are the online means of communication, conveyance, collaboration, and cultivation among interconnected and interdependent networks of people, communities, and organizations, enhanced by technological capabilities and mobility. So all that means is social media has made it incredibly easy for us to interact with each other, to share pieces of information. And it's all based basically on the development of the personal computer, laptops, now tablets, now smartphones. The Pew Internet Research Center published a piece not too long ago, I believe it was last summer, that Americans use approximately 2.8 devices simultaneously at any given time during the day. So that means I have my cell phone right on my desk, which I do. I've got my laptop open, and if I'm streaming, say, on my iPad, Spotify music, that's 3 devices at once. So we are hyper connected. And we're going to kind of pull this definition apart and understand some of the nuances here, but that's a good solid definition. And it's complicated, right? This is not something that we can easily say, okay, this is it's a lot of different things. I refer to social media as the wild, wild west because it behaves in ways that takes on its own persona sometimes outside of human beings, I believe, and we're going to look at why that happens. Now I want you to think about digital versus social. All social media is digital, but not all digital is social. And this is where I want to caution you. In the course overview, I mentioned that this textbook that I chose is the best that I have seen out there in terms of being approachable and actually being able to come away with it with some solid foundational knowledge. However, there is some overlap, and when we get to the zones of social media, I'm going to point out some flawed logic, but let me give you my basic definition. So yeah, I want you to think about participation is the key. All right, so if you're looking at, let's say, something that is in the entertainment zone, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but she's got the book has an entertainment zone. So if you're watching Netflix, that's definitely digital. You cannot access that without it being on a channel and a vehicle, and you're able to connect to it digitally because you can't get it otherwise. It's not something you can download, it's streaming. But you can't participate in it per se. You don't connect with other movie lovers. You really can't share maybe a scene from your favorite show, or let people know, hey, I'm watching Orange is the New Black, or whatever your favorite binge watch is, yet. Now I say yet, probably I would expect that to happen at some point, but there's no social in Netflix, although it is digital. Let me give you an example of digital and social. Spotify. So if you're not familiar with Spotify, you can create an account, which I highly recommend. It's one of my favorite music streaming services. You can get a free account, and it allows you to control what you're listening to, unlike Pandora. You can actually build playlists, you can follow playlists, and you can connect with other people within the platform. You can subscribe to other people's playlists. You can send someone a song within the platform. You can also syndicate what you're listening to your Facebook page and let people know, hey, I'm listening to this right now. Kind of like it's the MySpace 2.0. Remember when you used to go and hear the music when you went to someone's page, but that is digital and social. So when you look at something that's strictly digital, you would look at like a Netflix or maybe a business's website. It's all about participation. So if you'll think of it in those terms, I think things will be able to be clearer. Some key terms I want you to understand. These are in the textbook, but pretty commonplace in the world of strategic comm. Media are just means of communication, right? Mass media, that's the means of communication that can reach a large number of individuals, like broadcast TV, print, think newspapers, television, the nightly news. We are broadcasting one to many. Personal media is more downscaled. So I can text you, we can have a phone conversation, we can be face to face, but that's on a very small scale. It's two-way, but it's on a very small scale. Communication travels using a medium or a channel, such as word of mouth, television, radio, outdoor advertising, internet marketing. It can travel on any particular medium. So I want you to kind of put those in your back pocket and make sure these are basic terms you've probably heard before, but you'll probably pull them out several times while we're discussing our course material. Some mind-boggling social media statistics. Okay, so get ready to have your mind blown. The time it took to reach 50 million users for radio was 38 years. The time it took to reach 50 million users on TV was 13. For the internet, it was just 4. Facebook, on the other hand, reached 100 million users in less than 9 months. 100 million users in less than 9 months. It's crazy. So it doubled what it took radio 38 years to do. Now, skeptics for these numbers will say, yeah, well, there were a few. The population was less connected. It was smaller back then. Yes, those definitely come into play. But just look at the speed with which we are transforming ourselves. Now, social media is the #1 online activity worldwide. And a little fun fact in your book, it has overtaken watching pornography online. 94% of companies use LinkedIn as their primary recruiting tool. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, I would highly recommend one as a professional. 1 out of 6 couples married in 2013 met on a social media site. 4 billion pieces of content are shared daily on Facebook. And that goes up and up and up and up every single week as the platforms tweak, as new platforms come online. Those are incredible social media statistics. The book also gives this figure 1.1. I can't remember what page it's on, but I love this. Is called an infographic. This is a type of content, by the way. It's called an infographic. I'm sure you've seen them all around. We love infographics because we're visual. If you take my content marketing class or content PR class, we focus all about the content. And this one was put together, and it's actually a little bit outdated. If you will go to, if you'll Google leverage newagemedia.com. This is actually linked on our Pinterest board. You can take a look at the updated stats. But the thing I want you to look at, this is just from last year. And can anybody guess which one is missing? We've got a glaring absence here. We've got Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google Plus, and LinkedIn. I'll give you a hint. It's yellow. And if you guess Snapchat, you are right on the money. So things change in a snap. I know it's a bad pun. Couldn't help myself. But Snapchat's a relatively new player, right? Just came on online a couple of years ago, and it has had explosive growth. Explosive growth as seen by this little chart. And it continues to gain momentum every single day. And it's not even, I think it's mentioned one time in this textbook that, by the way, was written, actually the second edition was put together in 2015. So things that you learn in this course are going to be basic principles, because if I taught you social media this is a graduate course, so let's say not Facebook 101, but Facebook 501, it wouldn't do you any good because Facebook changes from week to week sometimes. So you want to make sure that you're understanding the underlying principles that you're going to get in this class in order to understand how to succeed in the bigger picture, the constantly changing landscape. So social media, as I mentioned, are defined by participation. That the only thing that you need to remember in terms of digital versus social, what makes it social is participation. So if you think in terms of your personal experience, a lot of times it will help you into greater understanding of what's happening with a brand. So how do people, what do they do? What's participation? So status update. You can post something on Facebook. You can answer the question, how are you feeling? And you can say, I feel great today. I've got a job interview, or I got the job, or whatever. Made a cake today. Look at it, so delicious. You can share something. You can share your favorite cat meme, or you can share a news story. You can share something that's positive, negative. You can create your own blog. You can travel abroad and create your own blog and become internet famous, sharing your passion and expertise. I have a knitting blog. It's not very popular, but I share my passion for knitting and my expertise in knitting and creating scarves. You can purchase a Groupon and you can promote it to your personal network to get even further discounts. You can pin something to a Pinterest board, recipes or workouts you'd like to try. You could play a social game like Candy Crush, which is, by the way, on its way out already. But think about in terms of how you participate. And depending on your demographic, you may be what we call, what we'll define as a lurker, where you just look and kind of lurk around and see what other people's are doing, what other people are doing, or you might be someone who publishes a lot of content. So look at how you participate, and then think about how brands participate. Are they buying those sponsored ads and showing you content? I'm a big fan of Rebecca Minkoff. She's a purse designer, and I like her style, so I show her first in my newsfeed because I always want to see what's new. But think about how you participate and then how brands participate. So I'd like for you to maybe pause this for a second and think about what the last thing you posted on social media was within the context of this democratic web. Did you express your concern for what's happening in the world in terms of race relations? Did you voice your support for your local police department? Did you share the video that showed either one of the gentlemen unfortunately getting shot? What was the last thing you shared, and what were your thoughts behind why you shared it? So that leads me to talk about social object theory, and this isn't in your first chapter, but I want you to start thinking about it because this is really, really one of those things that's going to lay that foundation for you to understand fundamentally what it is that makes social networking so powerful. Social object theory suggests that social networks will be more powerful communities if there is a way to activate relationships among people and objects. So an object would be anything that you share on social media. So let's look at Instagram, for example. So the object on Instagram is short form video and images, right? They provide filters for you to smarten them up, make them look beautiful. But the object is the picture or the video, and it allows you to interact in the broader perspective by using hashtags. So if I bake cupcakes, which I love to bake cupcakes, and then I take a picture, share it on Instagram, hashtag cupcakes, hashtag yum, hashtag nom, hashtag foodie, then I not only share this delicious looking, well, hopefully it's delicious looking, I share this delicious looking cupcake, and then I can connect with others over this object. And we have a shared love of this object. So it makes it even more powerful. It makes it what am I trying to say? The potential for explosive growth, explosive connection. So I connect to people on Instagram that I'm never going to meet in real life. Some of them don't even, they speak Russian. and I have to use Google Translate to understand what they're saying, but they're bakers and they make delicious looking cupcakes, and I don't even care what language they're speaking because it's all about the object. So I wanted you to think about what you shared before. Was it a news article? Was it a picture? Was it something that you created or someone else created? And what was the reaction to it? And where did you share it? And where's this social object theory in relation to what your favorite social media platform? And I'm guessing if you're a younger demographic, Snapchat is your preferred social medium, and that you like those objects of those easy to do snaps, snap photos and video. I also want to introduce the network effect theory. In economics and business, a network effect, also called network externality or demand side economies of scale. So this is not something that's specific to social, but it does apply. It's the effect that one user of a good or service has on the value of that product to other people, meaning that the more people we have involved, the greater the value add is. In social media, the network effect gives each user additional value due to participation. For example, you get more value from Snapchat as more of your friends use Snapchat. Or you might feel more comfortable making a purchase if others have given the item a good rating or review. So from my personal experience, Snapchat is not that meaningful for me because I'm 52 years old and not many of my friends are there. On the other hand, Facebook is very valuable to me because most of my friends and family are on Facebook. The other example is I was in fact looking, it's going to be Amazon Prime Day tomorrow. That's Tuesday, depending on when you watch this. That's Tuesday, the day our class opens, 7/12, and Amazon Prime members are going to get good deals. So I was looking at a couple things I'm going to order tomorrow. And of course, I looked at the reviews. So if there's only one review, then I'm kind of skeptical. But if there's 100 or 1,000, then I'm more likely to go, okay, yeah, that's got 4 stars. So that seems like a good deal.